to go from the later monochromes and the sort of soul of the machine's unconscious, back to the beginning. Here's a painting from 1995, and I was wondering if you could talk a bit about the source material for it and what would draw you to that particular painting or series of paintings.
This was again. This is 8 portraits, each one successfully painted over top of the other. And again, it goes back to different things going on in my head at the time, and one of them is that same thing of combining the idea of individuals to come up with an individual. This is a particularly troublesome group of subjects because these are portraits of the victims of Richard Speck. These are the 8 student nurses, and this is something that it was like a big turning point for me in my relationship to content. Because this was something, after doing this, I was trying for so long to do things that were politically charged or topical, or had that kind of drama to them. And after doing this one, this was kind of like the end of that, because I felt like this was something that's really close to the line of what's proper to do and not proper to do.
Yeah. I'm curious, relative to Gerhard Richter's treatment of the 8 student nurses, did that didn't empty out the content for you?
No, because they were still individuals.
So it was okay.
You still saw who they were as individuals.
So the portraits were intact.
The portraits were intact, even though they were done in kind of a generic way. Their source was also kind of a generic thing. They were their school portraits.
Yeah.
So, and in going that step farther, in combining the portraits so that the individual features become lost, there you've kind of emptied out the individuality of each one as a person, which turns out to be, in a lot of ways a very horrible thing to do. And so wrestling with that is something that made me back off from doing any kind of politically charged subject matter, to say they deserve better.
Huh, that's really interesting. Yeah, you moved it up to a sort of an ethical level, or moral level. But just thinking of that being in direct dialogue with, Gerhard Richter's famous statement about the trouble with what to paint, which would, him being very, very, that statement sort of authorizing or being justification for a certain level of ambivalence. To take newspaper imagery that, of course, has lots of charge and meaning, with the idea of in rendering it, is to ask,
anything is an available subject,
right? And
that's for him at that time. I think, anything and everything was an available subject, because it was all, it was treated the same. Everything was treated in a similar manner, regardless of where it came from.
And therefore, could it be empty? And you're saying no.
I really don't see how, because you are dealing with, like I was saying before, you're dealing with the connotations of every image you take, because it's still there. That connotation is still there. And it's something that I think is beyond your control.
That's great. So it's to say, this, in doing those, his 8 student nurses, it's like, this is not a monochrome, nor can they be treated in the same way.
Exactly.
In other words. Oh, that's very, very interesting. But in terms of the obliteration of their facial features, or any features, what's interesting is you're still left with the outline, of the so once you know what it is, you can see somehow, you still extract the one,
There's still, I can still see, I can still see the images. They're just, you know, totally fresh in my mind. So I can pick out, the aspects that belong to the individuals. I can still pick out of this.
Yeah. So you wouldn't read this, though. It's interesting, like as an obliteration.
At the time I painted it, it was, you know, I was trying to do that same thing where the idea of the loss of the individual and creating something where any individual could be pulled out of it, something that's universal. And now I've kind of lost my train of thought there.
No, but that's interesting relative to what you were saying before.
Yes.
You know, I can still, you know, yes, I can pull out distinct traces of all of them, but this is all of them, and in all of them, it is also none of them.
Right.
You know, at the same time. Yeah. But thank you, Scott, for the walkthrough.
My pleasure.
It's been really, really nice.